Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to LeTip Live. LeTip is an organization of like-minded individuals brought together to help each other's businesses grow. And today I have a special treat for you. We're going to meet our featured member of the month, cover of the Communicare, which you guys should be reading, goes to your email once a month. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Elise Gross, our attorney in the Boca Chapter. Elise, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, Doug? Thanks for having me on.
Great. Thanks for joining us. We can't wait to learn about you. You know, one day we'd love to have you in studio, you know, a little more intimate, but we're glad that we're able to do the Zoom thing today with you. So we're in New Jersey. You're in Florida, right?
Yeah, our weather's better, so I'm not too upset not to be able to be there in person.
Definitely right now. We haven't seen the sun in like 4 days. We saw a glimpse of it today, and that was nice. But thank you for joining us. Congratulations for being our featured member of the month and being on the cover of our magazine. Absolutely. So Elise, let's dive in. Let's get to know you. Elise, what do you do?
So I am a wills, trust, and estates attorney practicing in Florida. I actually went to law school in New York, so I'm admitted in New York, but I don't really do much there. And in your neck of the woods in New Jersey, I actually was admitted there too, but I don't practice there anymore, so I kind of gave that up. But that's what I do is estate planning and probate and everything that goes with it.
Awesome. I do want to remind everyone at home that we are live. So if you have a question, comment, or concern, please put it in the comments section, and me and Elise can answer it live with you today. So, so now you know what you do. What made you get into this occupation? What made you dive into this passion of yours?
So it's funny. The earliest I remember was at age 12, I declared I was going to be a lawyer. And I'm a commitment phobe, so that was never going to change. But I was going to be a prosecutor because I love to argue and I always think I'm right and on the right side of everything. It took about, I would say, 20 to 30 minutes of a criminal law class to realize that was definitely not something I was interested in. And then I took a class in wills, trusts, and estates one summer and fell in love. And said, this is just perfect for my personality. I can help people. I can work with families, you know, the young, the old, and everybody in between. And that's what I did. I was at I went to school in New York. So I worked at the Surrogates Court in Brooklyn in Kings County for about a year, doing an internship and then just kind of doing it when they used to let you do internships without pay. And then I took the bars and I came back home and did a master's at University of Miami in estate planning. So it's been my love. It's all I've ever done. It's the best.
Awesome. Great stuff. So who are some of the people that you normally work with?
So the way I don't really have a particular demographic that I work with. Or that I prefer to work with because I like to work with everyone. I especially like to work with families. So I have many clients. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I have many clients where I've worked with them, their parents, their children, now even some of the grandchildren. So it's a multi-generational practice, which they bring me in, and it's funny. I've had clients say, okay, listen, I need you to meet my kids. And I've had meetings with the 16-year-olds and the 18-year-olds and the 25-year-olds, just so they know that I'm here if anything ever happens. And it's really funny because I had a 16-year-old who took my card. He's probably the only 16-year-old who has an attorney's card in his wallet, and who asked me some of the best questions. It was supposed to be a 10-minute meet and greet. I was there for an hour and a half. So I love doing that. And at 18, I'm going to do documents for him because I tell all my clients that their teenagers are going to need documents once they become what the law recognizes as an adult.
Interesting. So I would like to think I have some of the best questions here for you today, but can you
Right.
give us an example of one of his questions that were really good?
Okay, so in that particular situation, I'm actually going to be serving or am serving as a trustee, which is something I do a little bit of
Mhm.
what we call an irrevocable trust. So, just as a brief, an irrevocable trust is a trust that's set up where the person creating it gives up the assets and they
Mhm.
also give up the control. So, somebody needs to be in place to be in control, and that's the trustee. And in this case, it's me. So
Gotcha.
there's not much in it right now, but when the parents pass, there's going to be significant assets in it. And he wanted to know, of course, like any other kid, how he gets his
Mhm.
money,
Of
and
course.
under what circumstances he can get his money. And, what would be the mechanics? Does he call me? Am I allowed to just say no? So he was
Mhm.
asking all these like really excellent questions, you know, of things that he's going to need to know in the future. And it was really great. And it was gave me an opportunity to
Mhm.
be completely honest and explain how it works, where normally a lot of beneficiaries don't really have that opportunity or the
Mhm.
relationship with the trustee to be able to ask those questions frankly.
Nice. So this here's a question based on this situation, and
Sure.
these are things that I've heard. So hopefully you could tell me this true or false. Let's just say you had a family member that you were going to put something in a will or a trust, or you were transferring ownership of a house. You want to make sure you do that. I've heard 7 years before they pass away or something happens. Right? Is that true? False? Is that a state thing?
So I don't know where the 7 years is coming from.
Okay.
There's a tax, an estate tax
Uh huh.
time frame where it's 3 years before a person dies. Just not to get overly technical, but when somebody dies, the IRS allows you under the law to be able to give away during your life and a death a combined amount. We call that an exemption. Right now,
Mm-hmm.
it's huge. It's 12 million 60. It's going to go
Mm-hmm.
down probably in 2026 as per statute, but you're
Mm-hmm.
allowed to give away that during your life or a death without any federal estate tax. Now, you're in New Jersey. I believe you guys
Mm-hmm.
you may or may not still have a state one.
Mm-hmm.
In Florida, we don't. That's why one of the reasons everybody moves here. No income tax, no state estate tax.
Uh-huh.
So, however, if you give that away, anything within 3 years of your death, it gets called back into calculation. So that's a 3-year thing. You may
Gotcha.
even be thinking of the 5-year rule, which is more of a federal Medicaid thing. If somebody goes
That's
into a
probably what I
nursing
was thinking.
home and
Yeah.
has given away their assets and they don't want to pay for the nursing home and they want Medicaid, if you gave it away
Got it.
within 5 years,
They could
Medicaid
still
takes
come
a
after
look
it.
back. So 7, I'm
Wow.
not sure what that is.
All right. Well, we're getting down to the truth. True or false? So someone gave me some not truthful information, but it's great that we have you here. You're able to answer these, and we want to let you guys ask some questions. So if you have a question, please put it in the comments section, and we can answer it live. So we kind of talked about this. About like you work with most people, you work with everybody. But if someone were to tip you, who would be a good tip for you?
So from a local end, from my Florida LeTip
Mm-hmm.
members, a good tip for me is anyone who needs Florida estate planning or has
Mm-hmm.
recently lost a loved one and needs to go through the probate process. From a Hackensack or anyone outside of the Florida state would be anyone moving to Florida who
Mm-hmm.
needs some estate planning, or let's face it, more than likely, almost everyone has a relative in Florida who will at some point pass. So those are great tips for me. And even just somebody who wants to be educated. So I get
Mm-hmm.
calls all the time from people I never really even end up doing business with, but I have the privilege and ability to be able to educate them and very often ease their mind of things
Mm-hmm.
that they don't actually need to do. So I love to be able to have that conversation. I had one today where I explained to somebody whose mother just passed, I explained to the surviving children, everything looks good. There's really
Mm-hmm.
nothing, here's 1, 2, 3 that you need to do. You don't really need me. Call me if you need me down the road. But at this point, I think everything looks pretty easy to accomplish, and you shouldn't need an attorney to do it. And that's obviously the best plans are those.
Yeah. And you're honest. You could, easily be working with that person. You don't need me. Let's keep it going. Keep it moving. That's great.
I'm all about the education.
Absolutely. So when would be a good time to review your estate plan? Earlier the better, right? But I mean,
I'm sorry?
I was going to say, obviously, the earlier the better. You want to talk to someone like you as soon as possible, but, when would be the optimal time?
So there's the difference between review and create a plan. So if you have no plan, then obviously you need to meet with an attorney to go over what kind of planning you need. To review an existing plan, if you move to another state, if you get married or divorced, if you have children, if there's a huge change in your financial picture, if major health crisis, God forbid you lose a child, those are the types of things where, you want to sit down. Now, a really good estate plan, you may not need to even do anything. So if it's done properly, you just get it reviewed and the attorney says, okay, it's looking good. The perfect example of this is I once had a friend, I've had it many times this happened, but this was a friend or a neighbor who came to me and said, oh, we just had another child. We need to have our, will reviewed. And I said, well, and I didn't do it. I said, if it's a good will, it's not going to change. It will have provided for that child. It just includes what we call afterborns. So whether you had one child or then have 10 more, it doesn't matter. It'll include it. And so they said, will you take a look? I said, absolutely. I took a look. I said, it looks fine. I said, unless there's something else you want to change about how anybody's getting anything, there's really nothing for you to do right now. You're in good shape. And they feel so much better after you have that conversation. I even do it, by the way, with single people. When I like to plan for if they get married, if they have children, if they have children and they're not married, so that when these things ultimately happen, and I've been called the day after somebody has a child. Oh my God, I've got to get in there because we need to make some changes. And I take a quick look and I'm like, you don't have to rush. We already covered this. So, that's a good plan. It's going to withstand the test of time.
Awesome. Do want to remind you guys, we are live. So if you have a question, please put it in the comment section. We're talking wills. We're talking trusts. We're talking estate plans with Elise. She's great, and she's here to answer all of your questions. Our featured member of the month. So let's not shift gears, but we're going to kind of shift gears a little bit. So one big thing that's happening now, ironically, that we're talking, is that people are moving from New Jersey and they're going to Florida. So people who are transplants to Florida, what should they be thinking about? What should they be doing?
So yeah, it's amazing what's happening here. It's always been, a major move shift each year, but now is, the numbers are astronomical. So the first thing somebody needs to be sure of is that they're putting in the requisite days in Florida. Now, I don't know if you know these terminologies. Obviously, there's the people that just move here, buy the house. Yeah. They've given up everything up north or wherever they're coming from, and they are now straight Floridians. You then have the snowbirds, which are the people that generally come for the long season. So they're usually here September, October, early November to end of March, April, beginning of May. They are usually putting in the 183 days that you need to put in to be considered a Florida resident. And they're getting probably homestead, which is huge in Florida. It's creditor protected. There's restrictions on how you could leave it at death. It's like the be all end all to have a Florida homestead. And then there's the snowflakes, which are the ones that kind of flit back and forth, which are not going to qualify as Florida residents. So in terms of what a person who has now migrated to Florida, whether they're a snowbird and are considering themselves Florida residents or they're permanent residents, one of the things they need to show is that they've registered their car here, they got their driver's license here, they're registered to vote here. And there's a whole checklist of things to look at. And one of them, believe it or not, is did they do a Florida will? And so that's important. And why is it even important that we go through the checklist? Because if you're moving from a state like New York or New Jersey, where you've got an income tax, or you have a state, the states that have state estate taxes, the last thing you want to do is have the retained connections with that old state. You want to have Florida be your domicile and it not be even in question as to what your home state is, because there's some huge tax savings there. There's, and creditor protection. We're big here on that. So getting that will done is really important. Another aspect of that, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so like, let's just say you transferred your car, your driver's license, you put your paperwork in, like you have to get these 180 days. Like, is there, I'm not trying to say like work the system, but like, how do they know if someone just changed their paperwork to Florida and then is up here most of the time?
So if there's somebody with a lot of money, they're going to be keeping track. There's literally apps that do this for you to keep track, because I've had so many clients where they leave New York, even when they truly have moved, and they get audited by the state of the New York taxing authority. And they have to prove this stuff. They have to show that their credit card statements show where they were eating dinner, that it was a Florida restaurant. And they have to prove that they were here and not elsewhere. So they actually do check. So as I said, I ran into somebody who had an app. I forgot what it was called, but I thought, what a brilliant idea. And for people who travel, people who, are domiciled somewhere else and travel, this is great because it keeps track of where they are and keeps their receipts. So they have it to be able to fight the audit, because very often there's an audit.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say before in terms of when you do your Florida documents, there's different, even if let's say your will is exactly like you would want it, in Florida, we sign it differently. We have the execution process is different than, let's say, New York. So for instance, in New York, your standard signing of a will is the person who creates that will, that's our testator, they sign. Then the witnesses sign, and then it gets notarized. In Florida, you have to sign, everybody signs twice, and then it gets notarized. So there's a difference in process when you probate a will if it's signed not correctly with Florida. And every little nuance that's a problem creates a time delay and a monetary cost.
Of course. This is some very, very useful information. Thank you, Elise. And we want to let you guys know, if you have a question, please put it in the comments section, because we got a lot of useful information here. So I have, these are some terms that I've heard, and maybe you can help me with them. But what is probate, and is it something you should avoid?
Okay, so probate is a court process that is necessary if someone dies with any assets titled in their own name. So it means it's titled to just the deceased person. It means there's no right of survivorship co-owner. It's not in a trust. It's not, it doesn't have a living beneficiary. The only way to get it from the deceased person to whoever's going to inherit is to go through a court process. So it's called probate. And it can be expensive. It can be time consuming. A lot of it depends on, where the person lives. So from what I understand from New York, it's not such a complicated process up there. So you're going to see a lot of people who will not have that much of an adversity to probate. In Florida, it doesn't matter how much money you have. Everyone tries to avoid it because it's very time consuming. And there's a major delay. I'm going to give you a perfect example.
Please.
I submitted paperwork to open an estate, we had to wait until death certificates came in. So that's a couple of weeks. We had to wait for all the family members to sign off and get notarized documents. That's a couple of weeks. By the time you submit, just to get somebody appointed to be able to administer the estate, we're now at, depending on what county, we're now at about 6 weeks. If there's any problem, things get rejected 4 or 6 weeks down the road, and you fix it and you go back to the end of the queue. We have a real estate closing pending. We can't sell anything. We're going to lose, we could lose a buyer. So in Florida, you know, depending on your county, especially where we are, you want to try to avoid this process by doing a trust, by putting on beneficiaries, by having survivorship co-owners.
So I got 2 questions. One, do you think it's because now I live in New Jersey and a lot of people will retire and move down to Florida? Do you think it's because Florida has a high senior citizen retiree demographic? So like, you know, they want to tie these things up so the government can potentially take them. Is that like, you know, so like if someone doesn't put something in a will or a trust and no one's like claimed it, right? Like it will go from the deceased to the government.
Okay, good question. So back to your first question, I don't know what the reasoning is as to why things are backlogged, and I can tell you it changes all the time. For instance, you know, it used to be that Palm Beach County, you got things signed in very quickly, and other counties you didn't. Now, for whatever reason, maybe they're very backlogged because of COVID. I don't know. And it could shift on a dime. But, you know, as an attorney trying to advise clients who are already subject to probate, it's very hard to say, okay, this is going to happen quickly because I'm completely at the mercy of the court. Our goal to avoid it is obviously a good goal, but some clients don't care. I had a client in the other day who's got hundreds of millions of dollars who said to me, you know what? I don't care about probate. I don't care about estate taxes. Let them pay. Let them wait their time to get their money. Wow. Like, okay, well, we'll certainly put a memo in the file about that to cover myself, but okay. You know, but most people don't think that way. Most people say, okay, look, I want my family to be able to get their money in a reasonable amount of time and not have the complexity. To your question about what happens if there is no will and there's no structure. So every state has what they call intestate succession laws, which cover if there's no will. Most of the time it goes to surviving spouse and or the lineal descendants, children, grandchildren, and in what percentages, that's going to depend on the state, and it'll depend on certain other factors. It's only if there is no one under the sun, meaning there's no spouse, there's no any descendants, there's no parents, there's no siblings, nephews, nieces, cousins, there's no one anyone can find, then it ultimately can go into, it goes to the state. But it takes a very long time for it to even get to that point, and it's pretty rare.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's a great answer. So so if no one puts in a will, it goes into the probate stage, and then that's where there has to be someone under the sun, and it's going to take time, rather than if you met with Elise and had a plan where things could be a lot smoother and a lot quicker.
Correct. But let me just clarify one point.
Yeah, please.
It doesn't matter if you have any assets that fit into that category that I said, which is just in your own name. If you have a will or if you don't have a will, it's still going into probate. The difference is if you have the will, you're deciding who's going to be in charge, and you're deciding who gets what, when, and how. If you don't have the will, it's going to go through what does the state statute say as to who inherits, and then someone will come forward and petition the court to be put in charge.
Gotcha. Great stuff. So we are live. I want to remind you guys, the comments are coming in. So we have one from Connor. Connor says, thank you for all the great information. And what is the most interesting probate /will story you've ever dealt with. Do you have any
Okay.
interesting stories for us?
So just to put it in perspective, this is a very fascinating type of law. You either love it or hate it, but it's like living life in many different soap operas. So
Wow.
most interesting, I can't really talk about because it's actually a living, breathing
We don't
case.
need
It
to
has
give
not
names.
subsided yet, but it's one of those things where you're like, you roll your eyes all the time. But I've had some where you have people come out of the woodwork,
I bet.
that you did not expect, where that unexpected error, or I've had many clients who've come in and they don't. This is unfortunate, but it's extremely common for family members not to speak. Whether it's you're not speaking to them or they're not speaking to you, often they don't know the reason. I kind of keep like a dysfunctional scale, and I say to people, they come in and they're like, well, it's really bad. Oh my God, I'm so, it's just really horrible. And they think they're really, they think they're like highly dysfunctional as a family. And I look at them after and I say, well, I got to be honest with you. I've heard so much worse. You're pretty low on the dysfunctional scale. And they actually walk out with a smile on their face because they think, well, we're, in a lot better shape than others. So I'm trying to think of a really good one. I had one where a client came to me. They already had an existing trust. And in the trust, it said they had no children. So they gave various bequests. They had a decent amount of money. They gave various bequests to different relatives. And it said to, my nephew, Tom, $1. You should have called.
Wow.
True story. So, lesson to all, if you've got relatives, be nice to them. You just never
Give
know.
them a call.
Exactly. You never know what might be in that pipeline.
Absolutely. So I can definitely see how you are awesome. One, you give us great information, but can you explain or help, or just, tell us a little bit your approach and how you do things differently than the average attorney?
Sure. Okay. So number one, I've been doing this a long time, but I've also been teaching, and I teach the paralegal students at one of our local state universities and been doing that for 12 years. So I teach what I do. And so I kind of feel like I'm a natural educator. So when I meet with a client or prospective client, I'm educating them. And my goal is for them to come out understanding what it is that the effect of what they have in existence, whether they have a plan or don't, and what doing a different plan would give them. So my approach is I also did and have done for many years, I worked with a firm that does asset protection. So when I look at a client's assets and their lifestyle and their, what they're trying to accomplish, I always look at the big picture. What do you have? How do you own it? Is it protected for yourself? Do you want to protect your family members down the road, which causes more administrative detail after your death, versus keep things absolutely simple or somewhere in between? So my approach is to kind of give them the full gamut of what their options are, and really work with them as a team, work with their financial team, whether it's their life insurance agent, their financial advisor, their other attorneys, their CPA, to just kind of put together some sort of approach that's going to help them make sure if they become incapacitated, they're covered. When they pass away, they're covered. If they care about probate, which most people do, to try to avoid probate. And then we look at the next generation and the spouse. How do we make sure that what they get, what they inherit, is for them and not for anyone who tries to take it from them? And that's a big part of what I do. And I don't know that every attorney really looks at it that way. The good ones do. The newer ones are learning. And I think we're moving toward that approach. It's definitely different than when I first started practicing, where you basically gave it out what I call ages and stages. You get a third at 25, a half at 30, and the balance at 35. We don't really do that so much anymore, especially with the higher net worth individuals, because it's not in anyone's best interest. It's not the beneficiary's best interest to just get a lump sum of money in the bank, because their creditors can take it, their spouses can take it, and it's gone, as opposed to let me trickle it down. And what if I don't need it? If I don't need it, don't I want it to go to my children? I don't need it in my estate if it can go directly. So there's a lot of different nuances to it. So for me, I look at the larger picture and how do I protect our beneficiaries from themselves and from their creditors.
Awesome. Yeah, you are great. And we love the information you're giving us today. And I think there was a quote, someone said, to master something, you need to watch it happen, then you do it, and then you teach it. And you're doing all those things. So you are a master.
Thank you. And, there's a lot of changes in the law that happen all the time, especially on the tax end, that, make it very interesting as a planner. And sometimes, you just kind of roll your eyes because you really don't know what's going to happen, because the laws are going to change. And when the laws change, do you have to go back and redo all the planning? So it's really important to make your planning as fluid as possible, so that if changes do happen, changes could be made even after a person passes away. Changes can be made if you structure your trusts properly. So that's really the goal when we do planning for people who are willing to go for the trust.
Nice. Great stuff. I do want to remind you guys, I want to make sure you know that if you put a question in the comment section, we can answer it live. Time's running out. If you want to ask her a question, if you want to ask Elise a question, we want to make sure you guys know that you are able to. We're live right now on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. So if anyone has a question, please put in the comment section. We can answer it live. We're gonna shift a little bit gears now. We're gonna shift again a little bit. We're gonna talk about LeTip. The reason why we got to meet and the reason why we got to chat. Elise is our featured member of the month. You can see her on our Communicare, which is our LeTip magazine that you guys get emailed every once a month. So you guys should definitely be opening your emails and checking that out. It's some great stories and write-ups of our members. So Elise, this is something I ask everybody on LeTip Live. It's one question that everyone gets asked, and that is, what does LeTip mean to you?
So I've been a member I'm in my 12th year now. Every Thursday morning it used to be 7. Now we pivoted a little for COVID and it's a little later, but I don't miss it unless there's absolutely no excuse to miss it. It's my family. When I started I joined at the end of 2010. I was at a crossroads, both personally and in my business. And it's just been probably the best thing I've ever done for my business. I've made amazing friends and just business partners that, you're just not going to get somewhere else. And it's just, what we've been through so much together: births, deaths, weddings, lots of every type of family event that, you could have. And, we stand by each other's side and we, and then we give each other business. It's kind of like, that's really just an organic event because of the camaraderie. And, I've been, every group always has attrition, but, we still have, I think the 4th tenured member of my group, and I joined in 2010, and there's a bunch of others who weren't that far behind me. And we're there, and there's a reason we're still there. And I'm helping actually start, one of my friends and former colleagues is starting another group in Florida, nearby, because, she knows how great it's been for me. She's working with Paul to get that started.
Awesome. That's great. And your chapter is great. Every once in a while, I'll pop into the lunch bunch and the happy hour, which if you guys don't know about those, you should definitely check those out. It's like an international Zoom call with people all across the nation that you get to trade business with, talk, to and learn from. And you guys definitely always have some people representing Boca, so they're a lot of fun. We love chatting with them.
Boca likes to be in the room.
Oh yeah. Every time they do the Boca, they do that Boca. So there you go. Paul's gonna love that I just did that for him. It's always fun in the lunch bunch and the happy hours. Paul and Summer do a great job, so you definitely want to check those out. And I believe they send out an email once a week to remind you guys with the link. So you definitely want to utilize all these things that LeTip has to offer. You're crushing it right now. This is a great interview. You encompassed my last 3 questions in that last one, what LeTip means to you. So you've been in for 12 years, and here's one. What made you join LeTip?
So I was looking for some networking group, and I was a little, I'm not going to mention other names, but I was scared off by some of the other national groups that are out there. I felt, not from having witnessed them, but more from what I'd heard, they were so hardcore. And while I'm an extremely committed person, obviously, I don't miss unless it's an emergency. I didn't like the pressure concept of it. And I reached out on Facebook to my Facebook friends and I said, I'm looking for something locally. And one of my friends was in a LeTip group in Fort Lauderdale. And she said, let me check if they have an estate planning attorney, because obviously it's, each category is protected in Boca, because that's where I live. So she brought me as a guest, and I guess I may have gone to the second meeting, but I was already in from the first one. And I joined immediately, and, haven't looked back. And I see the people who are in the other networking groups, and I'm glad that they're happy, but I'm very happy where I am and have no intention of going anywhere else. I've been on the board pretty much since, I would think I was there a month or 2 before somehow I got suckered to being on the board. And then I've served as tip master, vice president for many years. I did the lunch bunch, which I think you said you do. Although they used to tease me and call me like the lunch lady. And then I actually, right before COVID, we had a turnover because we were ready for new people, new blood, who are doing an unbelievable job. And then I missed the board. And so now I'm back on as Sergeant of Arms.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff. Great stuff. We want to remind you guys, we are live. So we're coming. This is your last chance. If you want to put a question in the comment section for Elise, we would love to answer for you live. We're about to get to the fun stuff and the speed round. Elise, do you know what the speed round is? Oh, I didn't. It's. I want to make sure you're off guard and you weren't prepared for the speed round. As long as there's no slime. There's no slime. I didn't get to input the slime machine into your house last night. Sorry. No slime. But we're about to do the speed round. So last chance, comment section. If you want to ask Elise a question, we can answer it live as I'm getting our speed round set up here. Elise, are you ready for the speed round?
I hope so.
All right, here we go. Can you hear that?
I hear the ticking. Okay,
all right, there we go. Speed round has begun. So, favorite food?
Sushi.
What's your favorite food? Nice. Do you like to cook?
Yes.
What's your favorite dish you like to make?
Sushi.
All right, nice. So you can roll it yourself. You know how to do all that. Nice. I'm impressed. I can't do that. I love sushi. I can't do that. Are you favorite movie?
When Harry Met Sally.
All right. Are you currently watching anything? TV show, streaming? What are you into? Are you watching any shows?
Actually, Scandal.
Okay.
Which I hadn't seen.
Yeah. Anything else?
Bridgerton.
Okay. All right. You should probably check out Yellowstone. It's about wills and trusts and stuff. You might like it.
Okay. I'll take a look at that.
Check it out. Yeah, check it out. What's your best concert and first concert?
First concert, Billy Joel.
Mm-hmm.
Best concert, probably Elton John.
Nice. Favorite non-job, like has nothing to do with work, passion or hobby?
Reading.
Nice. Favorite book?
Favorite book. I read like at least 2 a week. So I'll go old school, and probably my earliest favorite book was Cain and Abel, Jeffrey Archer.
Nice. Do you read any business books?
Occasionally, like marketing, networking stuff.
Yeah, is there one that you would like to share with a fellow business owner? Is there any business books you would recommend?
I never remember the name. Like, I think I just took out like 1 Minute Marketing, but I haven't actually read it yet.
Nice. All good. It's a speed round. It's very casual. Speed round. How about favorite color?
Blue.
Nice. I think you passed. I think you made it through the speed round. We got to learn a little fun stuff about you, Elise. Thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any questions, comments, or concerns for me or anybody out there?
First of all, thank you for having me on. That was fun. The speed round was a little unnerving, but we're good there. So yeah, thanks for having me on. I hope I, gave people an education, because that's what I like to do. And, they want any more education, they can look me up, and I'm happy to talk to them.
Absolutely. Is there a email, or is there if someone wants to get a hold of you anyway? Do you want to give out some information so someone can contact you?
Sure. I mean, my website is elisegrosslaw.com, ELISEGROSSLAW.com, and my email is egross@elisegrosslaw.com. There's actually some fun stuff on my website. I have a great little whiteboard video that one of our former members made for us. Explains that whole avoiding probate thing. So if you're interested, you should check it out. It's cute, and it really breaks it down. But if I enjoyed being here today, so thank you so much.
Absolutely, my pleasure. For you guys watching home, it's right there on the screen. Go to elisegrosslaw.com. She's got plenty of awesome info for you, and she'd love to chat with you. Elise, thank you so much for joining us. You rock. You were awesome. It was a great interview. It was nice to get to know you. Absolutely.
You too.
And we'll see you guys next time on LeTip Live.
Thanks.